Hi folks, today I'm going to show you how to paint up this Stone Lurker from Reaper Miniatures. It's the Bones line from the Bones 4. You might also know it as a Roper if you play D&D. Alright, so I started off painting the inside of the mouth with Naggaroth Night. I wanted this really deep purple for the base, and I haven't glued the mini together because that allowed me to get into this interior bit a lot easier. So I'm just going to paint this whole thing with the base coat of that dark purple, and I'll also do the other inside of the mouth. So there you can see, and now I'm going through with Evil Sunz Scarlet, and I'm just dry brushing to get those like mouthy bit gum stuff painted up. And I will actually in just a second up the brightness so that you can see it a little bit better. Yeah, just using a very small dry brush and working this red into the interior here. Because this isn't going to be super visible, I'm not worried about doing a whole ton of layers. This is more for, if you're getting down in close looking at the miniature. Alright, so there you can see I've painted also the inside, and I dry brushed it with red, a little sloppy on the teeth there. And now I'm going to use Eshin Grey to base in the entire thing. I'm using this kind of medium gray just as the base, and I'll go back through and do a wash to bring out the cracks and crevices, and then a dry brush. And you will notice in the background the tentacles have been based in. I painted these at the same time as I did the body, but just kind of for editing purposes, I'm going to show you all of the body and then all of the tentacle, but easily you can do these steps in between each other so that your dry time takes less time. Alright, so there you have the painted up, all based in both sides, and I'm still haven't glued these together quite yet. Now I'm going to go in with Nuln Oil and do a very quick wash over this. I only did one layer of this wash. I didn't want those crevices to get too dark. If you wanted more less of a dark contrast, you could also use a dark brown wash if you want more of a dirt effect, muddy looking thing. But I figured deep down in a dark cave, maybe not so much mud, but just rocks and stones. So there you can see it, and I'm going to let this dry. Plenty of time to really let this dry before going in and doing any dry brush because you don't want to have wet paint when you're dry brushing. Alright, so that's dried. This actually dried overnight. So I'm painting the teeth with Karak Stone just to do a base coat. I wanted these to stand out a little bit more from the rest of the miniature to give them a little bit of teeth look, but still have it kind of in that stone dirt bit. Because, until he reveals himself, the Roper just looks like a stalagmite. Okay, so now I'm going to dry brush with Pallid witch flesh over the teeth, just bringing out a little bit of dimension to the teeth. I also did do after I let the dry brush completely dry, I did go in and do a very light wash with Nuln Oil to deepen up the teeth. I did not remember to film that, but it's the same process that I used with doing the wash on the rest of the Roper. Okay, so now I have glued the pieces together because I was done with the teeth, and I'm going back through with Stormvermin Fur and just hitting up the tops of these smaller, smoother rocks. I wanted to give a little bit of differentiation between the main body of the Roper and kind of these piles of rocks that probably formed up around it. Maybe it moved them there to help disguise itself. I don't know. And just because these had a little bit of a different texture than the rest of it, I thought it would be a good way to just make them pop just a little bit, an ever so slightly different gray. So I've gone through and painted all of those, and now I'm going to come in and dry brush. This is with Karak Stone, so bringing some of that teeth color back in. Teeth color. That was a bit difficult to say. And I'm focusing a lot of this dry brush on kind of the facial features of this thing, so the eyebrows, kind of the bits under the eyes and around the mouth, but I do go through and dry brush the entire thing. And you will notice, it's just if you've never done a dry brush before, you get a little bit of paint on your brush, wipe most of it off, and then it's a very quick back and forth motion over what you're doing. So just kind of the high points get the paint. And it's a slow buildup. You could do multiple layers of dry brush. And oftentimes you'll see I slow it down a little bit. I pull down with the dry brush, so that ensures that the lighter color paint is hitting those tops, kind of where the light would be hitting it naturally, as well as where dust might be settling. So there you can see the dry brush. All right, so that's completely dry, and now I'm going back through with a second dry brush. This is in Pallid Witch Flesh. And again, I'm focusing on the facial features and then just going back through and hitting just a few bits here and there where I kind of wanted like these stones to pop out a little bit more, the very tops of the rocky peaks, just to bring a little bit more dimension. Dry brushing is a really easy technique that you can use in a whole bunch of different styles, but especially for stone, it works really well. All right, so now we'll move on to painting the tentacles. Now I based in the tentacles with Naggaroth Night. I wanted that really deep purple, bringing in the color in the mouth. I thought about doing maybe like a green color, but I didn't want them to look like vines. I wanted them to have more of a flesh colored look, but I decided to go with kind of a purple leading into pink, just to give it that look of this isn't quite normal fleshy looking thing. Words are coming to me well today. Just to give it a little bit of that like creep factor of like purple undertones. That's not something you see every day. Once that base coat is completely dry, I'm going back through with a mixture of Naggaroth Night and Screamer Pink, and this has been watered down quite a bit. It's probably about 1-to-1 watered down paint to water. And with this, I'm showing you a really good way that you can slowly layer up colors. So now I'm going through with just watered down Screamer Pink, and I'll keep building up these layers, slowly transitioning from that deep purple up to a fairly light pink. Now you could wet blend, but I decided to do this light layering look, especially with the amount of tentacles it was. It does take quite a bit of time drying between layers, but I was able to go back and forth and paint the rest of the mini, as well as just kind of paint a little bit, walk away, paint a little bit, walk away. So now I'm going back through with a layer of Screamer Pink and Horror Pink, 1-to-1 watered down. Actually, I think this mixture was about 2-to-1 as far as the Screamer to Pink Horror, slowly transitioning and just painting, pulling this up, and doing all 6 of these tentacles. And you can see as it dries down, it's a lot less vivid once it's dried. So again, I'm going through with a second coat of the Screamer Pink and Pink Horror, just kind of slowly getting this transition built up. It can be a little intimidating when you first paint it on and then look at it and go, oh my god, it's so bright. But that's why you water the paint down. It dries down quite a bit darker. And one thing you might want to do if you're a little hesitant is to try, especially if you've got a wet palette, mix it up, paint it on like a scrap piece of sprue or something, let it dry, and then that will give you a good idea of if it's the color you want. And now I'm going through with just watered down Pink Horror. So that gives me that final bit at the very end, that nice transition. And I tried to keep each layer kind of the same amount between each transition, just to have kind of a bit of a consistent ombre effect. Alright, so now I did notice that after it dried, there was a little bit more of a clear line between two of the colors. So I went back in and I added a little bit of Screamer Pink into that pink horror. And I'm just ever so carefully painting this on between the layers. And I could have just painted a stripe around, but that would have been a little bit more obvious. So kind of doing this broken up effect is going to blend them much better. And one last little bit of the Screamer Pink, I just wanted the very, very ends to be much brighter. With these tentacles here, I actually did not glue them in until I was completely done because I found it was in some ways easier to be able to remove them, especially getting in around the mini and painting the body. So there you can see that whole transition. And the last step is I'm going back through with Screamer Pink and painting these suction cup, I guess not suction cup, these little nubs on the base of these tentacles. Final step is eyes. I decided to do green, so I'm painting in Warpstone Glow as the base for the eyes. You could do a yellow, blue, you could do pink or red. I liked the transition and liked the idea of seeing two green glowing eyes in the distance. Or maybe not so much in the distance, but right behind you. All right, and to bring a little bit more depth, I'm going back in with Moot Green and just kind of painting these circles. So giving a little bit of depth, a little dimension to the eyes. And there you have it, the finished painted miniature. And I hope that you found this video helpful. A lot of dry brushing techniques as well as this layering effect. And you could use this layering effect for a lot of different things, for clothing, any kind of ombre effect you want to do, transitioning, or just using it as a highlighting where you can really build up those layers to transition those colors. Let me know if you've painted up the Roper or a similar mini and what techniques you used, as well as what colors you used. And if you have pictures of it, make sure to tag us on social media, because I'd love to see, especially if you use this tutorial, how you do and what changes you make. A big thanks to our patrons, especially Arvi. If you want to support our channel, you can head over to our Patreon page and check out the perks of being a patron. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you like it and share it with somebody who maybe picked up that Bones 4 miniature and is looking for some tips. Okay, we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!